Hi everyone, today I'm going to be doing a July reading wrap-up, so I'm going to tell you all the books that I read in July. The first book that I read in the month of July was Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban by J.K. Rowling. I gave this book 5 stars, I loved it. This is probably my favourite book of the Harry Potter series yet, because if you didn't know, I haven't read Harry Potter, or haven't read the whole series, so I'm trying to get into it, and this is my favourite book so far out of the first 3, and I loved this book, loved it. Such a great book. The second book I read this month was an ARC I received from Penguin Teen Australia, so thank you so much for sending me this, and it was Dumpling by Julie Murphy, and I'm going to have a review up on this book soon because it's being released soon, so I'm going to put a link on the screen when the review does come up if you guys want to go check out this review. So I gave this book 4 stars, or 4.5 stars out of 5. It was such a great read. I really loved it, loved the whole concept behind the book, and yeah, so if you want to see more about this book, then click on this review that will be up soon. The third book I read, which I actually have a review on now, is The Sacred Lies of Minnow Bly by Stephanie Oakes, and I love this book. You can go check out my review, so click right here and it will take you to the review. I gave this 4 stars out of 5. The fourth book slash comic that I read this month was Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card, the comic edition. So this was my first comic that I've ever read. I'm getting into comics now and I'm practically addicted to them now, but Ender's Game was my first comic. You can see the picture here, and I loved this comic. I didn't think it was very brilliant. I thought the plotline was just a bit lacking. There was a lot of holes comparing it to the book, because I loved the book, but there was just too many gaps in the plotline. It was very confusing, and for somebody who knows the storyline, it was confusing to me, so I liked it, but I didn't really like it as much as I probably should have. The fifth book that I read this month was Avengers vs. X-Men Consequences, and this was the second comic that I'd ever picked up, and I probably should have read this in order because I found out later that this was after another comic, so I was kind of confused. I found the whole thing very disjointing. It was very confusing and I couldn't understand the plot line, even though I had a pretty good understanding of the Avengers and the X-Men world. I couldn't understand what was going on in the plot. It was really confusing. It kept jumping back between different areas and scenes, and I really didn't like it all that much. I gave it 3 stars, but I didn't really like it, and people on Goodreads as well found it a bit disjointing, so it wasn't just me as a newbie to the Marvel world. The sixth book, which I absolutely loved, was Batman. I think this is the volume 3. I loved this comic. This was just so good. This is my first introduction into the world of Batman and the Joker. I haven't seen the movies. I know I'm probably the last person on earth, but I love this so much. I love the Joker. He's probably one of my favorite villains of all time. Loved this whole comic. It was so interesting, so brilliantly made, and I just loved this whole dark world that DC's built up, especially with the Joker and Batman. I loved this comic. I just give it 5 stars out of 5 because it was such a brilliant comic. Loved it. Loved this comic. The 7th book I read this month was Silas Marner by George Eliot, and this book I had to read for school, and so we're studying it right now, and I liked this book. It probably wasn't one of my favorites. I thought that the start was very dull and very boring, and it just made it really hard to get through, but at the end it did have a nice ending, and pretty much once you get halfway through this book it starts getting really enjoyable, so I liked it. I gave it 3 stars out of 5 because of the start. It was a bit boring. It took me a really long time to get through this book, and it's really short. It's such a short book, and it took me ages to get through this, so it was just really slow, and I found it very boring at the start. But then once it got to around the middle, it picked up and it kind of made everything feel a little bit better, so that's why I gave it 3 stars and not 2 stars. But yeah, I liked this, but it definitely wasn't one of my favorites. The 8th book that I read this month was Magneto Volume 1, and I found this really interesting. This is the infamous, I'm not really sure how comics go like by names, and I'm not mentioning any authors because I really don't know who to quote. I don't know who to quote the illustrator or the author, or I don't know, so we'll just go through the name. So I liked this. I found it really enjoyable, and I liked entering more into the past of Magneto, because I've watched almost all of the X-Men movies, but I haven't really found out that much about Magneto, and I really wanted to kind of delve more into his past, and so I found this really interesting. I liked this a lot and I gave it 4 stars out of 5. The 9th book that I read this month was All New X-Men Volume 1, Yesterday's X-Men. The titles are really long, and I liked this. It was really interesting. It has like the new X-Men characters, and then they travel back in time to the past, and it's just a really interesting plotline. I did get confused by the sheer amount of characters in this at one point, but then by the end I kind of got the gist of it and I really liked it, so I gave it 4 stars out of 5. The last and 10th book that I read this month was Iron Man: The Secret Origin of Tony Stark, Book 1. So I have to say, this is probably one of my least favorite comics that I have read, and I've only read a few, but I really didn't like this. I didn't like the setting, I didn't like the plot, and I pretty much skimmed halfway through the end. I didn't find it enjoyable at all. I didn't like the start where Tony was in the space world. I don't know what to call it, sorry, I'm not really an expert in the space aspect of the Marvel world, but I really didn't find this enjoyable. I didn't find it interesting. I thought it would just be, I didn't even know what to expect, but it was really different and I didn't really like it that much. And I only gave it 2 stars out of 5. Just, I really didn't like this one, so yeah, I'm not sure I really recommend it to you guys, but yeah, let me know if you did like this in the comments below. I don't know, I'm really new to all these comics, so I'm kind of half in the world, half not, so I still have to learn a lot, and there's so many comics for me to read, so I have to get through them one day. So those were the books that I read in July. I read a total of 10 books. I read 3 novels and 6 comics. My favorite book of the month was Prisoner of Azkaban. My least favorite was definitely Iron Man. I just didn't like it. I love the Iron Man movies, just didn't like this volume. My most unexpected read that I really liked was definitely the Batman Volume 3. Even though this is Volume 3, not Volume 1, I didn't start from the start. I really liked this. I can't explain how much I liked it. I loved this volume. It was so good, so interesting, so fast paced. Just so good. I hope you guys enjoyed this July wrap-up video, and if you did, make sure you give it a like. I also have a Goodreads page. If you want to see my Goodreads, then check out the link in the description below. I'm really happy with this reading month because I was 5 books behind my Goodreads schedule of reading 50 books in a year, and now I'm on track and 1 book ahead, so I'm really excited that now I'm up to speed and I don't have to worry about the 5 books behind, because that was kind of freaking me out a little bit. So yeah, I'm excited that I'm back on track with my Goodreads reading challenge thing, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!